Hello and welcome to the next episode of Overcome Yourself, the podcast. As you know, my name is Nicole, and I'm so excited to be here today with Anne. And Anne, I love what Anne does. She's going to talk to us about releasing emotions. I'm not going to butcher it, so I'm going to let Anne take it away. I know she's got a retreat coming up, and you guys know I love the idea of retreats. Can't wait to host my own. So please, Anne, take it away. Let us know about your retreats. Let us know who you are and who you help and about your retreats because I'm so excited to hear about this.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
Of
I'm
course.
my name is Anne Hince, and I'm just a normal person, but I've developed some pretty what I think are crazy inner powers that I had no idea were available to us before. I just didn't know until I started doing my inner work, and I just took it further and further because it felt so good. I was becoming more light-hearted. And because I'd had PTSD, I was really reactionary and very afraid all the time, and I needed things to change. So I started changing. And I just took it further than I knew it was possible to go. So at this point, I can put my awareness inside my tissues and inside my bones, and I can focus with a laser like focus and release tension inside of the tissues and bones. And I have shifted my skull bones and I have grown 3/4 of an inch in my 50s through doing this really intense inner work. So my goal is to share this information with everyone, especially women who are more willing to do the work, because we can heal at such a deep level. And I had no idea this was possible before, so I want other people to know it's possible. So that's what I share. And I have a retreat coming up at the beginning of July for women to do this work, women who've experienced a loss, because that will be the portal that we will go through to start learning the techniques and using them to start opening up our subconscious minds. So that's what I do.
That is so powerful. And I don't know if you've heard my story, but I was like 9 years old. I had an accident on a boat, and then nothing happened with that until I was 21. And the doctor was like, "Hey, you're gonna be in a wheelchair in 5 years if you don't like change your entire life right now." And so that was like 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. And I've been healing. I've been working on improving. And so I'm very interested to learn more. And I'm sure my audience would love to hear more. Tell us a little bit more about how you help women heal, because that's like super powerful.
Right. Well, I realized, I mean, over it's been a long journey, right? And it started at the very simple level. I mean, it was simple, but it was profound,
Yes.
of working through traumas. But even
Hmm.
before that, it was kind of working with everyday life, right? So I would go through my day and I would ask myself, how am I feeling right now? And I would answer myself, because it's that moment of going inside and working out how we're feeling that allows the energy to start releasing. And even going back further than that, one of the real things that I realized was that all our emotions and all our memories are actually stored physically in the body. It's just energy or tension that is stored physically in our body, and we can let it go. So that way we don't have to get attached to it. It's just energy, it's living inside of us. We just have to notice it and give it some attention. And when it's had enough attention, it releases. So if you're going about your day and you're finding yourself, frustrated or angry or sad, whatever it is, stop in that moment, go inside, ask yourself how you're feeling. So let's do a quick experiment with this. Okay, so tell me how your right knee is feeling right now.
Good. She's good. She doesn't
Okay,
hurt. She's, yeah.
cool. So in that moment, you went inside and you felt your right knee. Then you gave words to it, right? Giving words to it is going back into the thinking mind. But when you sensed into it, you were in your feeling mind. That's the work. That's what allows the energy to release, to actually feel it. So when I went about my day, asked me how I was feeling, asked myself how I was feeling, went inside, noticed, and gave it a word, I'm feeling frustrated or whatever. In that moment of going inside, I'm starting that process of healing. So that's really simple. So I would do that many times a day. And as time went by, I became less reactionary, which actually made my household more peaceful. So it was really nice.
Yes.
But I wanted it to go faster. I could tell things were changing, and I wanted it more and I wanted faster. So I wrote down every emotional memory from my childhood, every trauma, every big trauma and little trauma, and
Wow.
every phrase that my dad would say. He had a very short tempered. He was
Yeah.
not a pleasant man, really. And I worked through those. Now I use the technique called EFT. Have you ever heard of that?
Hmm.
It's also called
Yes.
tapping.
Hmm.
So I tapped using EFT on each of those. I tapped on one each night for about an hour to an hour and a half each night,
Oh,
just
wow.
talking through the event, if it was an event, or replaying the thought, the words in my mind until there was no emotion left at all. So it's
Hmm.
doing the same thing. It's kind of feeling, it's like noticing how you're feeling, and just the tapping does the release for you. So it's really powerful when you're starting out. So that's how we work through a trauma. We talk through it or tap through it from beginning to end, and then back again from beginning to end over and over, because doing that and releasing the emotions as they come up, it releases, it kind of opens up the subconscious mind, and more details of the story come to mind. So we might have forgotten parts of the story, but they will come back to mind as we let those big emotions go. So we work through it from beginning to end, beginning to end, over and over until you can just tell the story like you're reading from a book. There's no more emotion or energy left in that story. And at that point, you know that it's healed. At least that aspect has. It might come up again in a slightly different form and slightly different emotion, but then you have more work to do, and you can do that then. So that is how we work through emotions and traumas from the past.
That is fantastic. That is phenomenal. That is very, very powerful. Um, I've done it with someone else, right? And they helped guide me through it because I did disassociate for a little bit there, and so I needed someone to come back in. So it is a very powerful practice. I'm just reiterating for the audience. So you might not want to do this by yourself because you don't want to re-traumatize yourself. And so that's why it's very important to have someone there with you to guide you through this so that you can go through the whole thing, right? Because it is a process, but it is so powerful. It works. Like I know from firsthand experience that it works. And so that's fantastic. I do want to mention in my book, I don't think I've talked about this before, but one of the chapters I talk about vocabulary. And so when we are going in and we're noticing, can you talk to me about how important it is to vary up the vocabulary and to really get down to the root of what it is that we're actually feeling versus just saying it hurts?
Right, because it hurts is a very high level feeling, right? But
Yeah, it's just like an
until,
umbrella.
right, there's a lot
Yeah,
more underneath. There's many, many layers underneath. But with my work, I start with it hurts. If that's all
yeah.
you're aware of at that point, that's what we would work with, and we would tap on it hurts. And that is a layer. And as that layer releases, some other thoughts might come to mind, some other words might come to mind. And then we would work on those. And I love what you said about vocabulary, because with EFT, with tapping, with this work, it's really important to use your own words. Now, someone can lead you through, but there's a lot of scripts online. If you look at EFT online, people will tell you what to say, but they're not using your words. And you have to go down your neural pathways, your memories, and come up with the words. So perhaps you now use a different language than you did when you grew up, in which case you would want to tap using the words that you learned as a child, because those are the ones that are stored inside of you more deeply than the ones you use now. So if you had a trauma that happened when you were 6 and you spoke a different language, those are the words you'd want to use, because you had thoughts at that time and memories at the time using that language, and that's what you stored inside of you. So I love
And
that.
I think that could be literally a different language or also metaphorically a different language. because immediately I thought, oh my God, my first language is Spanish. I couldn't speak to my dad until I went to kindergarten and I learned English. And so I maybe that's a layer that I haven't even uncovered because I haven't even gone in Spanish. So that's a big deal. But also just the difference in vocabulary when we are young, right? We're gonna use certain sentences a certain way. We're gonna use words a certain way. And it's that's a big aha moment to go back to that and use like those simple sentences, to use those words that you associated directly, not the summary that you're used to repeating now as an adult, where you have this whole story. Be like, no, let's go back to the basics of
Right,
how I talked
absolutely.
then.
Like saying, if you were tapping on my mother said this or did that, well, you didn't call her my mother, right? You
Yeah,
called her
good
mom or you
mom.
called her mommy.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
in my
yeah.
case, I grew up in England, so it was mum or mummy.
Mom. Yeah,
So yes,
mommy. Yeah.
yes, that's a very, very important part of it that allows you to get deeper, right? It
Yeah.
allows you to get deeper. And what I realized as I uncovered the layers was that self-awareness does come in different thresholds. So there's
Mhm.
being aware of the words, the memories, the emotions. The emotions is a good layer because I wasn't aware of my emotions when I started. But then there's another layer, which is the physical sensations underneath the emotions. So when we're saying we're frustrated, we're actually, that word frustration, we can say is coming from a set of physical sensations, like physical tension we're holding in our body somewhere that we call frustration. Most of us are not aware at that level, but you can become aware at that level. It's a deeper level of self awareness. By doing this work, I became aware at that level. And then I went deeper still and became aware inside the body itself. So there really are really deep physical roots to all of this work. We're just not aware of most of it.
Yes, yeah. And in some of my manifestation groups, I've seen comments of people who said that the year where they decided to focus on their body, getting massages, going to the gym, like doing things to take away the pain, like to be comfortable in their own bodies, they're like, I manifested more than I've ever done in any other period, because when we focus on our body, we are releasing all of these things. And when you look at quantum physics, that's all we are, is energy, right? And so it's just eye-opening, right? And just to really go into ourselves. Because a lot of times we're like, we're gonna push through. Like, it hurts, but let me push through. Let me just get this done. Let me do this. And that's a sign where we need to like take back and be like, maybe something's off here,
Yeah.
right? Instead of pushing through.
We're
This is,
suppressing. We're suppressing when
yes,
we do that. I mean, it doesn't
yeah.
make it disappear, it just leaves it in the body and it's still affecting us. So if you have manifestation groups, you know about the law of attraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so I think of it slightly differently from most people because I have this awareness inside the body. I believe the biggest part of the signal we emit, so it's not just thoughts, right? It's not just I want more money or I want a car, right? It's not
Yes.
just that thought. It's deep inside of us. And the biggest part of the signal that we emit is this tension stored inside of us from our past, which is why working on your body would be so much more effective. But also doing this inner work because it's releasing tension deep inside the body. So the best thing that you could do for your manifestations would be going back and releasing the traumas from your past, because that is actually physical tension stored inside that is disrupting your signal.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes so much sense. This is very powerful. Like, this is a very powerful episode, guys. I hope you're paying attention. So, talk to me a little bit about your journey to this. Like, tell me how you stumbled upon this.
Well, I had had lots of traumas in my childhood, like most of
Hmm.
us had. I was adopted. I was born with my right foot up against my right shin. I
Hmm.
had a house fire where the flames were coming in through the ceiling. I had went to a boys' boarding school where I was teased mercilessly by the boys. My parents were alcoholics, and I found my mother dead on the bathroom floor when I was 19. So that's kind of a summation of a few of them. But I had no idea I was carrying all that, just like you with your story from your boat. I had no idea it was affecting me or my life until I was in my late 30s when two other women at my boys' school told me I'd done something wrong. And they were these self-confident, self-assured, authority type women. People in the school were scared of them, to be honest. And
Hmm.
I was the scared mother on the inside, and they told me I'd done something wrong. And my mind just went out of control. It just spun over and over, all the different thoughts, what I said, what they said, what I did, what I could have done differently, just all these different permutations.
Hmm.
And it was at the end of those 3 days, because I couldn't stop my mind for 3 days, that I realized, okay, this is not normal. And it felt a little bit like how I would react when my dad would tell me I'd done something wrong.
Hmm.
So that was the little opening. Oh, maybe something from my childhood still affecting me. Of course, at that time, I had no idea how much. I mean, it was massive what was hidden inside and what is hidden inside our subconscious minds. We're not shown it until we're ready to deal with it. But it is huge. The connective tissue, which I realize is where all this tension is stored that I'm releasing inside, it pulls with a force of 2,000 pounds per square inch, which is massive. But we don't feel it because it would be too much. If I had been aware of what I've been aware of in this last 5 years, if I'd been aware of that in my previous years, I couldn't have survived. It's
Hmm.
just so much pain and tension. So
Hmm.
to do this work, I mean, it sounds like it's really overwhelming when I say that, but it isn't, because you're only showing it a little bit at a time. And if you have the
Yes.
tools to release it, which it was actually a doctor, a holistic physician, that showed me EFT the first time, which was really nice. He worked through my mother's death with me. If you have the tools, then you can do this work and just take it a step at a time.
Yeah, and like with physical pain, when you have a big pain, it's like your focus. Like that's all you can think about. And that's happened to me with my back. And then when I'm finally able to, fix whatever that big pain was, and you think, all right, everything's going to be okay now. But what happens is the smaller pains that were kind of set aside, they're like, hey, you know what? I'm still hurting, but I was just kind of like, you weren't paying attention to me. And I think that that's kind of emotional. It works that way too. We have this big thing and it's taking over all of our attention, but there's all these other smaller things that once we're able to, like my dad, like talking about, like messed up things our dad said to us. Like if I'd be like, my leg hurts, he's like, come here, let me break your finger. You won't be worried about your leg anymore. But that's like the idea, right? Like obviously he never did that. He would just scare us like that. But a bigger pain is gonna take over. And then, but that doesn't mean that the leg is, I was like, no, now I'm gonna have two problems, a broken finger and a hurting leg. Like what are you talking about? Right? But as we fix those bigger pains, then the smaller ones start coming to our attention. It's not that they weren't there, they were there and they were dragging you down. You just hadn't noticed until, the bigger one went away. So,
Right.
um,
I have two
yeah,
examples of that, of one emotional, traumatic, and one physical.
tell
So,
us.
like you said, it was my mother's death was my big trauma, and I was holding those tears back for 20 years
Yeah.
before I actually let them flow. But those were holding smaller traumas, and not necessarily that small either. One trauma that I didn't mention is when I was in the age of 7 through 11, at some point there when I lived in Hong Kong, we were driving through a really crowded market, and my dad was furious. He was seething, spittle was coming out of his mouth. He was moving the steering wheel back and forth, and he ran over a girl's ankle while she was
Oh
holding her mother's
no.
hand. But I had totally forgotten about that. That memory did not come back until I had released the trauma around my mother. So it was just coming up to heal. And all these things, they are just coming up to heal, even if it's the physical thing. So, as I said, I was born with my right foot up against my right shin. And the first 6 weeks of life, my foot was released. And I was adopted, and my adopted parents didn't know that this had happened. So I didn't know. I didn't have any lingering pain or anything really. There are a few instances, but nothing much. until I started this really deep release work, right? I'd released all my traumas. I was working at a deeper level in my body. I was able to put my awareness inside my head, inside my left cheek, and the pain in there was almost unbearable. I could only focus on it for a second at a time because it was so incredibly painful. But that pain in my left cheek was hooked through my connective tissue all the way down to my right foot. I had just not been aware of that pain. It had been there my whole life and I hadn't been aware of it. But now, right, I'm healing it at a really, really deep level. There's very little of that pain left. Just, I mean, I'm pulling apart the the knot of connective tissue that was stored in there. And there's very little strands of it left after working on it. Just feeling it, putting my awareness on it, allowing it to feel however it feels. I'm not trying to change it in any way. I'm just focusing on it, giving it attention, like we did with the knee, and it releases.
Yes. Yeah, like, yeah, people don't realize, I work with a movement specialist, and one of the things she teaches is like the cascades, right? And it's exactly what you're talking about. You don't even realize how connected everything is. And like your sciatic nerve comes all the way up here. So like when you floss your sciatic nerve, you go like this because it's all the way up. So your pain in your foot can definitely be up here, and you're like, "Oh my God, it's coming from my foot." Yeah, like when my upper back hurts, I have a shiatsu massager, and I'll make sure to put it on my lower back because everything is connected. So when my lower back hurts, these guys are like holding this part up, and then my shoulders are overcompensating for the middle. So I know if my shoulders hurt, it's actually coming from my lower back. If my feet hurt, it's coming from my lower back. If my knees hurt, it's from my lower back. And so you learn to understand how everything is connected. Um, that changes everything for you because it's not just looking, oh, my shoulders hurt, my middle back hurts, my lower back hurts. Yeah, like everything hurts. But if we find the big domino, this is what I teach my clients, like with creating content, but find the big domino, you knock that one down, everything else feels better. And that's exactly what you're talking about with finding these emotional trauma centers, these knots that we have, and just letting them go because they're all related. It's just it's just crazy because it sounds woo woo, but we know that there's science behind this too, right? And so, like, it's reality. Like, we really gotta think about what we think about, right? Because most people in our society today, they don't think about what they think about. They let their thoughts just run the show.
Right?
And
Or they
I
tell
had to,
themselves not to think it, right? I shouldn't be thinking that.
yes. Yes, yes, yes. And we just, I decided one day, I was like, I'm not going to let my emotions run the show. My emotions are one of my most powerful, superpowers, like you were talking about, but they don't run the show. Like I get to direct them and I get to use them for good and for doing good things for others, right? And not just to be crying every day and having panic attacks. Like that's not helpful to anyone, not me, not anyone around me. Like, no.
Right.
But
I
I
would
have those
say to
big
that though that
emotions.
I the way I do it is I notice the emotions and feel
Yeah.
them rather than suppress them or push them away or hide them because it's hard to believe, but they really stop coming up once you do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to experience.
Yeah, I have a 5 minute talk, and one of the things I talk about is I was in a panic attack, and I was like, "Do you like this? Like, why? Where is this coming from? Like, do you like feeling this?" And I really had to confront it and talk about it with myself and really come to the root of it. So you're absolutely right. Now, before we sign off, I want to know what, if any, what part does gratitude play in all of this that we're talking about?
That's an interesting question. I've done a lot of work in gratitude in the past. Where I am now is I'm just noticing. I just notice what happens. And as we release our past, I can see it now. I can see inside. So I know the tension from our past is the darkness. It's dark inside. But when we release that tension, it gets filled with light. So the light was either there underneath it before, or letting the darkness go has allowed the light to flow back in. And so as we do this work, we actually become more positive. Those negative emotions, those negative thoughts disappear from our mind, which is really fun. and we are naturally more positive, and gratitude is a part of that, right? It's easier to see the positive in life, and it's easier to be, to feel in gratitude for it. So that's, I would say, where it is.
I love that. They work together.
Yes.
Um, so let us know, how can we stay in touch with you? And you mentioned a gift. You had a gift for the audience. You want to tell us about that?
I do. I have a free PDF download on my website that is the 5 steps to profound inner peace. It's a 5-step blueprint, I should say, because I like the word blue. I like the color blue and the word blue. So that's available for free on my website, and it talks you through these steps and explains the different thresholds. So that's available there, and you can contact me there as well. I'm also very active on Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel, so you can contact me through any of those.
That's amazing. And all right, this is just absolutely fantastic. I so appreciate you being here with us today. And before we sign off, though, final tip. What's like the biggest takeaway? What's the biggest aha that your clients get working with you?
I would say that there's more to life than we realize when we start this work. There's a depth to life that we have not experienced before, and people start to see that when they start doing this work. They come alive.
I love
And
it.
if you've experienced a loss, if you're a woman who's experienced a loss and want to try out this work, then our retreats would be an excellent place to immerse yourself in it and to come out a different person on the other side.
I love it. You said it's in July, and where is it going to be?
In Northern California.
Love it. That is fantastic. All right. And your website, the website, all the in the show notes, all the links that she mentioned are going to be down there. So you can grab your freebie and you can check out more information and sign up for the retreat. And this has just been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Anne. And we will catch you next time on the next episode of Overcome Yourself, the podcast. Bye.